Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and have the honor to moderate this panel. I really like to thank the Consell de Mallorca for the invitation, my colleagues for all the support in preparing, and of course my fellow panelists. I'm really honored to have such an amazing lineup of speakers here with me. Actually, the UN, the United Nations, is in the panel. We have public sector in the panel, private sector, civil society. So we are a diverse panel, so to speak. Diverse, but we share a common objective, the objective to accelerate the transformation of the tourism sector towards more sustainability and resilience. So last night, following the lead of Professor McCurry, what I did was to ask OpenAI and GPT, about action frameworks. Actually, I was curious to see if it would understand it the same way that we do. And that's the reply that I got. An action framework for sustainability refers to a structured, goal-oriented approach designed to guide individuals, organizations, or governments in the development and implementation of sustainable practices, policies, and strategies. So I guess the chat is right. That is exactly the purpose of the action frameworks that we are leading within the framework of the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program, and that I have the pleasure to coordinate. All of those frameworks will be part of our discussion today, in addition to other amazing initiatives that our colleagues are implementing. So action frameworks, we've heard it. Dirk also introduced it in the panel just now. They are key to address complex issues, and sustainability is clearly a complex issue, and it is context sensitive, and as Jesus put it earlier, interdependent. So our discussion will focus on sustainable consumption and production. That's a very broad concept, as you all know, but which ultimately focuses on decoupling tourism growth from environmental degradation. So exactly what we really wish to accelerate by translating it into concrete actions. We will have a first round where our colleagues will let you know what action frameworks they are using and how those are helping them. And in the second round, we have tried to, let's say, reflect on how those action frameworks can actually trigger additional effects at the destination level. So let's get to it. Oh yeah, and please remember this is a bilingual panel. In case you need the device, there will be some conversation in Spanish and English. So I'll start with Jorge. My first question is for you, Jorge. Jorge Laguna, he's the head of the One Planet Network Secretariat in UNEP. The One Planet Network, I guess, is an action framework on its own, a very broad one with different branches or programs. And it has the mandate to support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 12 on sustainable consumption and production, and other connected goals like the one on climate or the ones on protecting terrestrial and marine ecosystems. So Jorge, what does that mean to be an implementation mechanism of SDG 12 from a UN perspective, and how is the program structured? Which themes are we working on, and what's the tourism program? What's the role of tourism in the whole network?
Muchísimas gracias, Virginia, y voy a empezar con unas palabras en español porque estoy tan contento de estar aquí hoy en Mallorca con ustedes. En primer lugar, quiero agradecer a la Fundación de Mallorca, al Mallorca Tourism Observatory, establecido en asociación con UNWTO, la Agencia de Naciones Unidas, que tiene el mandato de promover un mejor turismo. Estoy verdaderamente contento de estar aquí con ustedes hoy. La manera de contestar tu pregunta, y ahora voy a pasar en inglés, quizás para que nos puedan escuchar las personas que están conectadas, it's by telling a small story, right? And that will help you perhaps understand what we do as One Planet Network and how we help deliver change. Yesterday, I have been enjoying this wonderful strip where you can do a great run and you can see families enjoying this community with the sea, but also you can see businesses that are there providing services. And in the little jog that I did, about 3 kilometers, especially in a very important day for the United Nations. Yesterday was the first Zero Waste Day. And I have to say that I was incredibly impressed to see here that I only identified one single-use plastic cup straight from a bin repository. How is that possible? How that change happened? Is it because culture? Is it because leadership? Is it because of regulation? What we have seen, it is that change is possible. And I was very much impressed, and I have to say and pay tribute to the wonderful engagement here of three major actors. And when we speak about the One Planet Network, we will touch upon these three major actors. First and foremost is the individuals. Many people think that problems in this world, especially those, as Virginia mentioned, associated to sustainable consumption and production, are too big for us. We believe on the contrary. We think that perhaps we cannot change the world, we can change our world. We are responsible for our behaviors, we are responsible for our choices, provided that those choices are made available. But we have a role to play. Second, the companies that we work for, the businesses that are providing services have a role to play. Third and foremost, the authorities that provide the legislative and operating framework have to talk to one another. We play an important role as being the United Nations mechanism to implement sustainable consumption and production. But we don't do that alone. Why? Because these challenges need collective solutions. For example, we are a network of 10,000 individuals that have the knowledge and the capacity to create a global movement for sustainable consumption and production. We hold 6 global programs that addresses the key areas of sustainability. I would say the core to it is sustainable tourism, and we are pleased to partner with UNWTO and a number of countries such as the government of Spain and the government of France, and over 1,000 partners that lead this initiative. Additionally, we work on sustainable public procurement, sustainable food systems, lifestyles and education, built environment. These are what we call high impact sectors and enablers for change. Just to finalize the question on implementation, we believe that there are 4 key points that I think are common to all our endeavors. The first one is to position sustainable consumption and production. You can call it circularity, circular approaches at the heart of our fight to tackle climate, pollution, and nature crises, but also the social crisis of providing fair and equal employment. You heard it in the opening of this conference when the president of Mallorca came and spoke about circularity so many times. It is key. The second one, it is to enable change. How do you enable change? We will learn about it today, so I won't speak a lot about it now. The third one is to ensure that no one is left behind. There are a number of representatives here that are coming from countries that require support and that require frameworks, that require learning these experiences, that require opportunities, but also within our societies, there are parts of our societies that should not be left behind. Last and not least, it goes back to that point of we all have a role to play. We have to create a global movement. No one is too small to make a change. The 3 factors that I constantly advocate is rethink the way you do things. Once you rethink, change and act. Once you act, inspire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jorge. And it's actually a pleasure to announce that the tourism sector has been identified as a high impact sector in the Global Strategy for Sustainable Consumption and Production 2023-2030, which of course provides solid grounds for our sector to continue advancing in this direction with support from environment. I'm going to, let's hear now from our one long-time partner of One Planet, which is Booking.com, our second speaker. Kees Jan Boenen is the head of the Travel Sustainable program at Booking.com. This program you may have seen was launched a year and a half ago, and it promotes sustainable travel and connecting travelers with more eco-friendly accommodations and experiences. These are the leaves that you see now in booking platforms. So Kees, can you tell us a bit, let's say, how that program works? What is behind it? How has been the uptake with your businesses? Are the properties loving it? Tell us a bit how it works, please.
Yeah, happy to. And thanks for the invitation, and very happy to represent booking here at this platform. So before we get into the detail of how the program works, I would like to set a little bit of context here, because when Booking.com developed the program, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We looked around and we looked at how are accommodations recognized for their sustainability efforts and how can they communicate that to consumers. So that was through official certification programs. But then we looked, okay, how much certifications do we have on our platform as accommodations? And that was less than 0.5%. So there was a huge overwhelming majority of accommodations that were not recognized for their sustainability efforts and were not able to communicate with the consumers. So that's exactly then what we did. We developed a program that really looks at where are accommodations in their sustainability journey, and how can we recognize accommodations that have taken significant steps but are not for some reason part of a certification program on our platform. I think secondly, it's really important to understand where we are with the program. As Virginia rightly mentioned, it's only 18 months old. We don't have all the answers yet. We're learning, we're collecting data, we're improving the program. And where we are now is really building this sustainable supply. Because in the future, and we strongly believe that, consumers will look for more sustainable places. We have to be ready, and we have to make sure we have that supply in place when they come to our platform. I think thirdly, obviously we cannot do this alone. So we have worked in the development of the program with GSTC, with Glenn and his organization, SHA, and with Travelist and our partners. Travelist, you might know, is a pre-competitive platform, and together with competitors that are also a member of this coalition, we try to scale and implement this program throughout the industry. How does our program work? So what we have done, we have identified 29 questions that look at 5 topics: renewable energy, food waste, water stewardship, engaging with local communities, and environment. So based on these 29 questions, which follow a life cycle assessment, really focusing on high impact, but also what is in the sphere of influence of an accommodation. So they can start almost directly with this program. So those 29 questions we share with our partners, we make them aware of it, we promote it, and with the data and the answers we get back, we highlight the attributes or sustainability actions taken already by an accommodation. And if they reach a certain threshold, you will recognize them for their sustainability efforts with the levels you saw yesterday on the screen. So level 1, 2, or 3, or if they're part of a certification, we recognize that as such. So the goal again was really to provide the more conscious consumer with credible, transparent, and easy to understand information that if they would like to travel in a more sustainable way, they can do so. So the uptake, we have seen a very largely positive response from our partners. The program started 18 months ago. We have now 1.3 million partners sharing data with us, which means they filled out 1 or more questions. Out of this 1.3 million accommodations, almost 500 are recognized for their sustainability efforts, which again shows the point that even for our program, which is not a certification program, there are 800 partners that are currently not meeting the threshold to become recognized. And I think this is something to very much keep in mind, because if we want to accelerate the industry to become more sustainable, we have to understand where they are, and they're not at certification level. A lot of properties are starting their journey. So we really need to provide the framework, the tools, the knowledge, and the confidence to start sharing what they're doing. And this is something maybe to conclude with, is we're not a certification program. We're really trying to bridge that gap from accommodations that are just starting all the way to bring them to the doorstep of official certification.
Thank you so much, Kees. Amazing private sector-led action framework, which works hand in hand with what we do in One Planet, and really with your outreach capacity, I think we all of us see clearly a lot of potential there. You mentioned waste being one of the aspects that you are looking at as part of the criteria, and that brings me to our next speaker. Waste is a very relevant issue in general, of course, but also if we want to talk about circularity, as waste is, for which waste is a resource. So our next speaker is Samantha Kenny. She is Senior Program Officer in the World Wildlife Fund, and she manages partnerships and pre-competitive work streams engaging in global food service and the tourism sector. So Sam, why did WWF decide to focus on tourism? Because I mean, we know WWF, but maybe it's not that common to know that WWF was interested in tourism. What are the implications between food waste and tourism, and what initiatives have you supported or advanced?
Thank you so much, Virginia. It's really a privilege to be here among such esteemed destinations and stakeholders from around the world. It's really been inspiring, and I'm excited to continue the conversation. So, World Wildlife Fund, we're a global conservation organization, and we work on, you might be really familiar with our work preserving wildlife species or addressing climate change. We work to secure systems for people, for the benefit of people and nature. And of course, a lot of these topics are really relevant to the discussions we've been having over the past 2 days. One of the newer practices within WWF is their food practice, and it's a body of work that represents sustainable production of food, sustainable consumption of food, and food loss and waste, which is my specialty. So when I came onto the team about 7 years ago, WWF had already been working on topics of food waste, and that's because of the really outsized impact that the production of food has on systems and nature around the world. The production of food uses more resources than any other system. It uses more energy, water, wildlife habitat, chemicals than any other production. And then we ship it all around the world to have the globalized food system, the amazing meals we've had even now on this trip. So WWF had been working in food systems all over the world. It maybe just hadn't been stated as such. So when we came to the table, we were looking at some of the first systemic data on food waste and where it was happening in our systems. We were looking first at the US. So I'm based originally in Washington, DC, and we are thinking from a US perspective on how we can most strategically address food waste for benefits of people and nature. And we looked at the reporting and we saw the breakdown and we said, okay, about 40% of food waste is coming out of consumer-facing businesses. This is an area where WWF has significant positioning to work with public and private sectors, civil society, to really change the way that businesses are approaching food sustainability, food procurement, food production, and absolutely disposal of organic waste as well. When we were thinking about where to start with consumer-facing businesses, we started with hotels, and the reason was very direct for us. Hotels employ a critical mass of food service workers, and they serve a critical mass of diners around the world. And it was the quickest way we could start to understand how food service could be transformed to be less extractive and less damaging. So we invited together, it was 7 years ago, we invited together with the American Hotel and Lodging Association and Hilton Hotels. We sat in the room with 5 large multinational hotel brands, Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott, IHG, and Accor. And we started to discuss what does it look like to address food waste systemically in hotels, hospitality systems. And what was born out of that was pilots across the country, which were testing out key drivers and solutions to food waste in the hotel context. After those pilots, we went to work writing a toolkit, and you can find that at hotelkitchen.org. It's now become a larger suite of resources, and that included guidance on food procurement, staff training, consumer engagement, menu design, how to serve a buffet that doesn't produce 50%, waste 50% of the procured food or something like this. And then also with a top priority on preventing food waste, but also with the understanding that very often in these complex systems, we can't avoid all food waste. So also how do topics of food loss and waste connect with topics of food security, food donation systems, and then also critically food waste diversion, keeping food waste out of landfills and incinerators. In landfills, food waste becomes methane, just like other organic waste, and it's actually one of the key drivers of climate change today, and one that we can definitely address. So once we put this out to the sector, we saw quickly adoption in the States, but immediately the tourism sector is not one that stops at borders. The brands that were rolling this out at their properties and with their teams had operations all around the world, and we needed this platform to be appropriate for that scale of operations. So we immediately set to work scaling to key tourism sectors around the world in Brazil, Victoria Falls, throughout China, a national program in Pakistan, and many others. And today we actually host these resources really at the global level to say these are the universal tenets of how you're going to be addressing food waste in hotels. And we were able to dig in that way. Since then, others have hotels aren't the only ones producing food, so others have knocked on our door. We created the 86 Food Waste Toolkit for restaurants, and we also work in partnership, one-to-one corporate partnership, and also pre-competitive engagements to bring along hotels, restaurants, cruise ships, commercial catering, to really change the way that they're procuring and serving food. And today we're in the business of scaling up, out, and deep. And we see these concepts formalized now in the UN One Planet Global Tourism Food Waste Roadmap, which I'll speak a little bit more about in a bit. But critically, we're seeing these concepts scaled through brands, through their the best, not business as usual, but business at its best, and really seeing the way that their guests and their customers are really demanding that they act. And very critically, we're seeing these initiatives rolled out at the destination level. And really, we say destinations, we mean communities. The hotels and tourism businesses are not at all in isolation. We've discussed this several times today. Next to a hotel is a school, is a supermarket, and is the place where people were born and live. And these are the lives that we share with each other, and we're really all sitting around a global table. And this work, we eat together here at a global forum, and then you go home and we're still at a global forum in the way that we are sitting in our interconnected systems there too.
Thank you so much, Sam. It was great to have your contributions to develop the global roadmap for food waste reduction in tourism that, as Sam mentioned, is a One Planet UNWTO publication. Is the new, let's say, the newcomer, the new action framework in the network that we wish to implement jointly with many of you under the motto of prevent, redistribute, and circulate. So that food waste is minimized and what is left is prevented, or let's say, sorry, diverted from landfill, which is basically where circularity also lies. And circularity, as you all know, is a very powerful strategy for climate action. And this leads me to our next panelist, José Juan Lorenzo. He's the Executive Director of Turismo de Islas Canarias, and he's leading his organization's strategic change towards a more competitive and resilient tourism. And I think it's really commendable to see how that strategic change has placed climate action really high in the agenda. We are proud to have Canarias as one of the signatories of the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism. This declaration asks for signatories to support decarbonization goals, to achieve net zero by 2050, and also to take into account regenerative approaches, connecting with the nexus that was mentioned in the first panel of the morning between climate and biodiversity. So, José Juan, can you tell us a bit how did you develop your first climate plan? What process did you follow? Was the Glasgow Declaration useful in some ways, and how is the plan structured?
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you to WTO El Consell de Mallorca for this invitation. From the beginning of the COVID pandemic in 2020, it was clear to us that strategy of the Canary Island destination have to undergo to a complete review. That among other key aspects, will allow us to face the climate emergency. For this, in March 2021, we launched the Canary Island Destination Strategy 2022-2024, which include among its three main objectives, the advancement in the decarbonization of our tourist activity. To meet the challenge of decarbonization of our economy, the key is to measure and the target is to reduce. And this only can be achieved through the commitment and individual effort of each of the destination stakeholders. But success will only be achieved if the move is collective, massive, global, measurable, communicated, paced, and ensure well orchestrated. How can we ensure that each individual stakeholder, and especially small and medium-sized enterprise, can measure and reduce their own carbon footprint, and at the same time, be able to measure the progress of the whole destination? First, providing the required carbon footprint measurement solution, one which is adapted to their specific activity, which is easily understandable, and which is considering that is a long-term endeavor, giving the necessary support along the road, monitoring and communicating all the time what the individual and the destination target progress is, from a single centralized cloud solution based on science and international protocol, and all at zero cost to businesses. For that reason, in 2021, we began to develop the methodology and the application that from the destination platform will allow us to manage the decarbonization of the destination. In November 2021, when the Glasgow Declaration was launching, we saw ourselves fully aligned with it. Glasgow provides us with an overreaching framework, which helps us to accelerate and facilitate the engagement of all the stakeholders, and at the same time provide us a clear guide to do the action plan. Therefore, last October 2022, the Seven Island Council, the Professional Association, and a large number of companies endorsed the Glasgow Declaration, and at the same time, approached the Canary Island Destination Climate Action Master Plan. Our implementation plan has achieved the following steps. We have estimated the carbon footprint of the Canary Island destination in 2019 base year, 1.85 million tons CO2 equivalent in destination activities, 5.3 million tons CO2 equivalent in air connectivity. We have conducting a pilot with 35 companies to test the understanding of the solution, launch a digital destination platform which has at its first objective to accelerate the decarbonization of the destination with the solution, the travel to decarbonization, adhering the whole of the Canary Island destination to Glasgow Declaration, and simultaneously presenting the Canary Island Action Plan. And now we are at the point where next month, April, we fully finally launch our onboarding plan for the destination business carry out jointly by the DMOs and all the tourist associations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Juan, for the effort and also for your willingness to always share the experience. We know for destinations it's a bit daunting to embark on a climate action plan, and there's also not a single recipe that works for every destination. So once more, the only way is collaboration and sharing. So thank you for that. So we've touched upon the global roadmap for food waste reduction in tourism, the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism, and we have a third action framework running under the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program, which is the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. I'm very happy to introduce you to Wassim Daoud. He's the head of sustainability and corporate social responsibility at PONANT. PONANT is a French company with 13 luxury cruises that has been operating for more than 30 years. Wassim, PONANT is a signatory of the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative, and you are driving actions that are connect to the elimination of single-use plastics, integrating reuse models, and collaborating with suppliers and waste managers, which basically are the commitments that the initiative is asking from signatories, the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. So what motivated you? Why is plastic pollution and tackling plastic pollution so important for PONANT, and what are the solutions that you have implemented on boat and at port?
Thank you, Virginia. Good morning, everybody, and buenos dias. I'm very happy to participate to this nice event. Let me introduce briefly our company. PONANT, as you said, is a French cruise company, luxury company. We have only 13 small ships. The maximum is about 300 passengers on board. And all our ships are designed with the latest technologies for environmental protection. The sustainability is in the core of our strategies since the beginning. And our latest CSR roadmap is focused on three main pillars. The first one is about the environmental and health protection. The second one is how to improve the well-being of employees, our own employees. And the third one is to involve our stakeholders in a systemic, sustainable approach. And concerning plastic, it's in the first pillar of environmental and health protection, where we have ambitious goals like reduction of our carbon footprint by 30%, but before 2030, reduce all the air emissions by 90% before 2026. We treat all the sewage waters. We also participate in an international alliance to preserve 18 million of square kilometers of marine areas. And we deploy a circular economy approach with reducing, reusing and recycling waste. So in this topic, we decided to eliminate totally all the single-use plastics on board and in our offices. But it's not very easy to eliminate plastics in ships. It's not the same thing in a standard hotel. So the first step, we had to audit our ships and identify the items to eliminate. So we identified about 20 items, cups, straws, stirrers, bags, bottles, and other packages. And the second step, we had two main challenges. First, to find the right solution to replace these packages. So to find the right solution, we have to consider the life cycle assessment, economical, social, and technical aspect. And the second main challenge is to educate our staff and our passengers to accept these changes, because it's not so easy. Let me ask you, do you accept to drink your favorite mojito without these two straws, plastic straws? It's not so easy, no? So, ¿cómo beber un mojito sin pajitas, plásticos pajitas? Es necesito traducción. No fácil, pero I switch in English. It's a challenge, a lot of challenges. It took about 3 years to reach our goal, especially for the bottled water, because we used to use about 1 million bottles a year, 1 million bottles a year, plastic bottles. And for a ship to replace plastic bottles, we have to produce waters in a good quality, good taste. We have to serve this water in cabins, respecting hygienic conditions. And we have to, as I said, educate our passengers to accept to use refillable water bottles and to use this kind of water. So we first had to find how to purify, how to produce this water. We found Norway technology, Norwegian technology called Nordac with ultrafiltration to produce this water in a good quality. We installed new machine to fill bottles and close the bottles. And after that, we had a big campaign of communication to participate in this changement. So I'm happy to announce that we are about to reach this goal now. And as we signed last year in 2022, the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative from the United Nations Tourism Organization, we will declare soon this success. And now the next step is to work on the microplastics, how to eliminate the microplastics. Yes.
Thank you, Wassim, for your commitment and also for reminding me a very important aspect that needs to be mentioned about the action frameworks under One Planet. Actually, they require reporting. So they're not just pledges. Normally on an annual basis, we are getting in touch with the signatories to understand what has happened and what has been the progress and where support is needed. So basically there's a follow-up process trying to accompany in the best possible way we can all of those that are making these commitments to transform. So thank you, Wassim. Our next speaker is Tono Franco. Tono is the co-founder of globaldit. He's an economist specializing in planning, product design, and marketing. Tono, the colleagues have been sharing how they are engaged in the implementation of initiatives. They have been explaining how they are leading by example. But to ensure a green transition, all stakeholders need to play a role. Many of you said it. And also we need enabling environments, which can be triggered by better policies. So from your experience, what role can destination policymakers play so as to support action in these areas: climate, plastics, food waste, circularity, or even inclusion?
Ok. Gracias, Virginia. Bueno, muchas gracias por darme un magnífico motivo para venir a aprender y comprender, porque al final estos foros son absolutamente imprescindibles para que nos vayamos. Antes había algún ponente que hablaba de estar en la frontera del conocimiento de los datos sobre la transformación sostenible y claro, es un lujo, ¿no? De pronto no lo haces, pero cuando tienes la oportunidad porque te invitan, pues te pones aquí y yo llevo mi Moleskine llena de notas y de cosas que realmente son sorprendentes, que trato de enlazar, etcétera, ¿no? Y qué bueno sería que los gestores de destino pudieran tomarse 2 días para entender y comprender unas dinámicas que desde siempre le han sido ajenas. Nosotros, yo soy un diseñador de políticas públicas y y me toca ir a destinos de todo tipo, porque la pregunta, como todas las que se formulan aquí, que son complejísimas, tiene multitud de respuestas, ¿no? Y para empezar es que los destinos no parten de la primera, no tienen el mismo resto en esta partida de época. Entonces hay destinos como este en el que nos encontramos, que es fantástico escuchar a un conseller contando su ley, su apuesta, entender que el motor es el turismo. Pero hay otros destinos en los que me toca trabajar de vez en cuando, donde el éxito es convencer al tomador de decisión pública de lo importante que es el turismo. Excuso decirles lo de la sostenibilidad o la digitalización. Entonces, para empezar, no es una respuesta homogénea ni fácil. Esa es la primera. Pero, hombre, lo que tiene que crear, y esto es lo primero, es un marco de colaboración conjunta para que las áreas... estoy hablando del tomador de decisión último, porque al final el gestor del destino en materia turística tiene poco poder. El que tiene la capacidad de crear esos marcos de colaboración son los tomadores de decisión que están por encima. Y que el gestor del destino, entendido solo turismo, y cuando es solo turismo, es una visión promocional normalmente. No es una visión de gestión de la sostenibilidad. Entonces, lo que nos encontramos normalmente es que hay una gran separación vertical de las áreas. Entonces, lo primero que los políticos deben de entender, los tomadores de decisión, da igual, el stakeholder que sea, ¿no? Pero en materia política específicamente, deberían de entender que hay que cruzar las actividades. Esta verticalización de esto es innovación, esto es cambio climático, esto es sostenibilidad, esto es medio ambiente, esto es igualdad. Hoy hablábamos de las señoras que tienen que mover 60 kilos para hacer una cama. Y esto tiene mucho que ver con la dignidad, la calidad del trabajo, la sostenibilidad, la igualdad de género. Entonces, lo primero sería encontrar esa manera, ¿no? de encontrar ese encuentro. Luego, otorgar relevancia a la actividad turística. Decían antes, no, el que lleva lo digital está allí en la última esquina y sí, tenemos de sistemas. Hay uno que hay ahí que... Pues excuso decirle lo de la sostenibilidad, ¿no? El otro está en el despacho 2 puertas más para atrás, ¿no? Entonces, hay que otorgar relevancia a la actividad turística desde una visión holística, desde una visión integral. No por el hecho solo de que las acciones no son inocentes, no hay ninguna acción inocente, siempre hay una huella, siempre hay. Y en ocasiones se asume y sobre todo hay que gestionarla. Y ese es el siguiente paso, empoderar al área de turismo para que sea capaz de gestionar esas situaciones y finalmente entender, también lo han dicho aquí, no, yo es que soy el más sostenible. Aunque lo de los premios, que es algo de lo que hablábamos el otro día, lo de los premios es interesante, ¿no? Porque es una motivación más para obtener resultados a corto plazo. En muchas ocasiones nos enseñaban el otro día cómo, y soy presa de ello, cuando vas a cambiar al canal 12, eres capaz de darle 7 veces al clic en vez de buscar el 12. Por la inmediatez. Yo creo que también hay que hacer entender a los gestores de destino que esto no es un resultado a corto, que esto es una apuesta que supera el ciclo político y que es una apuesta que también es cierto que los diseñadores de política de sostenibilidad, de transformación sostenible de los destinos, tienen que dar de comer a cada uno de los actores que intervienen. Y deberíamos de tener en cuenta que aunque es una acción a largo plazo, debemos de entender que a corto es mucho más fácil si vas mostrándole a los diferentes actores del ecosistema turístico, incluyendo a la ciudadanía e incluyendo a estos otras verticales que tienen que ver con esos aspectos más sostenibles, sociales o ambientales, es mucho más fácil convencerles si encuentran resultados a corto, pequeñas acciones que le den, por eso decía lo de los premios, ayer hablábamos de los Oscars, de la sostenibilidad, de encontrar aquellas cositas que les van moviendo, ¿no? Entonces creo que es un actor, o sea, que el gestor del destino y sobre todo el tomador de decisión último es un actor imprescindible para pegar todas las acciones que cada una de las iniciativas, desde los programas supraestatales liderados como es el caso de One Planet o las acciones de Booking, ¿no? Necesitamos realmente que el gestor del destino, y con esta gran diferencia entre grandes destinos, pequeños destinos, etcétera, envuelva todas las acciones y las pueda establecer sinergias y provocar la transformación sostenible.
Thank you, Tono, very much. At the end of the day, we wish to, let's say, to transport that vision, the vision of a system through the activities that we implement in the initiative. So hopefully the vision of a system would be also integrated in tourism policies, that they can look at these aspects more holistically. Tono, you mentioned also the importance of stakeholder engagement, which is a key element. It has been mentioned in many of the panels discussing governance. I wanted to ask José Juan about the plan and the development of the plan that you just told us about, and how did you encounter challenges with regards to stakeholder engagement when you were developing the climate action plan?
I will say that on the contrary, sincerely, we believe that if we have a true north proposed that which such reach a net zero emission by 2050, we know that and we have already a climate action plan set for the whole sector. We know that the commitment of the destination companies, professional association, and DO is total. And they are willing to work together the road as soon as possible, as demonstrate the collective endorsement with the Glasgow Declaration. So we think that we are ready. We have to jump to the swimming pool and to do the job. But also I have to say that more close collaboration is necessary at the regional level between Minister of Tourism and the Minister of Energy Transition and Climate Action. For me, this is a really important topic. We were talking today to the silos, and I think that we can go faster and further if we work more closely. About okay, this is all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
José Juan. Thank you, José Juan. We couldn't agree more. Collaboration is clearly not easy. It's a task on its own, and it requires a lot of effort. This brings me back to Jorge. Jorge, the One Planet Network is rooted on the principle of collaboration and sharing of best practices. Do you have an example for us where the network as a whole, with the different thematics, programs, have collaborated on a topic to accelerate the pace of change?
Yes, Virginia, and I think that today we have heard, just to simplify, 3 very concrete solutions, and all of the representatives in this panel are engaged in implementing these solutions. The first one, it is how to decarbonize the operations of the tourism sector and making it aligned to global frameworks. The second one, we've heard about it, it is how to ensure that we have a solid options to phase out the food waste, change behaviors, use that food to transform also business models. The third one, and I will speak a little bit about this, is on single-use plastics. We heard the inspiring story of PONANT. We have also heard from Booking. What do they mean in general? They mean that for you, whether you are a student, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are an authority, moving towards circular approaches makes sense. It adds value to your company, it adds value to your employees, it adds value to your operations, overall to your reputation, your ability to capture finance, and your ability to retain customers. In this tourism sector, you can do it by these 3 approaches. Something that we have learned that it has been transformative is the issue of plastic pollution. In 2000, and I believe it should have been in 2017, the United Nations Environmental Assembly gave a mandate to the One Planet Network that was to bring together the food systems program, the global tourism program, all the programs that I spoke in the beginning of my interview, and start getting the global community ready to solve one major challenge. It is to phase out the use of single-use plastics and create a plastic-free economy for these different value chains. The programs started working together for a period of 2 years. The results have been really encouraging. And I just want to share with you the 4 main findings that actually translate to many of the other challenges that we're hearing in the tourism sector. The case to move to circular approaches is anchored in these 4 points. The first one, it's the need to use reliable standards. You need to have a set of checklists. You need to have something to measure your efforts against which you want to accomplish. We heard that beautiful story from Booking. The second one is the need to move towards behavioral change. You want to solve a problem, you cannot do it alone. You have to bring your customers, your suppliers along. And that we heard it beautifully from PONANT. Eventually, we have to change our behaviors. The third one, it's you need to buy differently. The way we procure, how we procure, the choices that we make at the procurement level are critical. The fourth one is that you cannot create a policy or a framework for businesses and the productive sector if you don't bring the businesses with you. You cannot dictate. You have to build with your stakeholders specifically. Obviously, this eventually results in the need to create value for your company. One of the things that we have also learned is that once you have those elements there are a number of companies that are at different stages. Some are more advanced and are ready to embrace this, leapfrog, take the competitive edge. Others require training and support. Solving these global challenges, it's not to be done in this competitive zero-sum game. It just adds to make better business, more responsible authorities, and more engaged consumers. This is the experience that we have taken, and through the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative, which is the gold standard of managing plastics in the tourism operation that we are implementing with the World Tourism Organization and all these wonderful partners, it is the best gateway that you have for your enterprise to really embrace change. This, you can do it voluntarily, and it's wonderful. It will become a norm, and this is extremely important. In this year, there is a global commitment, you have read it in the newspapers, to develop a treaty that will address plastic pollution and phasing out plastic pollution. So you can get ahead of the game by using the tools, the resources, the checklists, the standards that we have, and just join this wonderful global movement of the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative that's being spearheaded wonderfully by the partners here and the Global Tourism, World Tourism Organization.
Thank you so much, Jorge, also for the support that we received from the Secretariat, because through the Secretariat and the collaborative work with the other programs is how we are actually able to take part, for example, in the negotiations of the International Plastics Treaty, which is now being discussed in different platforms. So we have the possibility to influence bottom-up, and we have the possibility to influence top-down, hoping that both approaches will converge into better policies, better practices. So that's that's an interesting lead that we're following. Kees, we said in the intro that we would reflect a bit how we can support destinations through the application of our action frameworks. What are the next steps for the travel program of Booking? Have you thought about possible uses at destination level?
No, absolutely. And I think for us, for me, and for Booking, here starts the exciting part. Right? Because we now have all the data, we know what the baseline is, and now we need to work, okay, how can we get into action and help accommodations to level up and to move up and to implement more sustainable actions? And we cannot do that alone. But I wouldn't be working for Booking if we are going to take a data-led approach to how can we educate the accommodations in taking this next step. And I think this is a great example where we can work with destinations, with experts, plastic, food waste. Through our program, we can now see on destination level till what extent accommodations have implemented a certain category of sustainability action. For example, on plastic, we can look at the destination and say, hey, this country or this destination has done great on renewable energy, but is lacking on removing single-use plastic. How can we come up with a targeted approach with the knowledge to a certain segment of accommodations and come up with a really sharp campaign to help them and give them the tools to, move on those actions? And they will be rewarded for that, because then on our program and on our other programs, they can then demonstrate the actions they've taken. And it's the same for food waste. We need to bring together the experts, the destination, and the insights in order to make this work. So I feel that's a very important step where we can have real impact.
Thank you so much, Kees, for that reflection. It would be really amazing to put that data to good use, right? For destination makers to make better destination managers, to make better decisions. At the end of the day, it's a lot of properties that are using booking.com. So I think it could provide great insights.
We will work on the customer journey as well. Like as was rightly pointed out, only our data shows different results as the professor showed yesterday, but it's a good point, and that's the next step on our program as well. How can we create, and this is also an industry issue, how can we create more awareness among travelers and look for the more sustainable options?
We clearly need to tackle the issue of the straw and the mojito. So we have to discuss about that ASAP. Sam, what about you? Do you think the global roadmap for food waste reduction, which by the way now is addressing mainly accommodation businesses and cruise liners, do you think it can also provoke certain changes at destination level?
Absolutely, and it has to. So the roadmap is going to help companies lay their path forward for action on food sustainability and food waste. But they can't implement it without the destination. So it takes policy and infrastructure alignment in the areas of operation for these businesses for them to actually be able to create and implement programs that are in line with the goals and the intention of the roadmap. Really what we're seeing right now is we are advocating at all levels for to place a high priority on the loss and waste of food. And for that reason, we're seeing global brands and also governments setting priorities, legislation, restrictions around wasting food, sending organic waste to landfill, avoiding donation of surplus food and things like this. So in fact, if destinations don't move quickly to secure their food system or make these circular dynamics of their food system and their tourism systems, you're going to have businesses knocking on your doors and saying, my brand is requiring that I divert food waste. Where is the infrastructure for this? My brand is requiring I donate food. Your policies aren't clear enough to help me do that confidently. So I would encourage all destinations to take a look at how their policies are aligned for things like food donation and food waste diversion. Infrastructure for food waste diversion has to be zoned and licensed, and there are experts and engineers who need to be educated and hired and compensated in these spaces for it to work. And you as a destination actually have a consistent voice for all of these tourism businesses that you work with. You can advocate for donation systems that support the most vulnerable in your communities. You can also absolutely invest in infrastructure, but you can also deliver job skills training programs to local hospitality and food service operators. So even when they leave a hotel and go down the street to another one of your hotels, they'll still carry that culture of food sustainability with them throughout your local sector. And also invite your guests into this conversation. Our guests travel between our destinations, and there's more and more information, education campaigns available for guests, and they're actually happy in some cases to hear about tourism, to hear about sustainability, and to hear about what tourism businesses are doing to address it. So WWF and others have resources on communicating the topic of food waste to guests in a way that is appropriate and enriches their experience as opposed to takes away from it. And it's something that could have a really consistent voice, say, if you were to ground a campaign on food sustainability or sustainability society in general in a place that then all of your businesses can benefit off of that. So in closing, I wanted to actually share, I just thought of this as I was sitting up here, a concept that I found really quite inspirational. A friend shared with me recently. And the concept, it's a little, just a tiny complicated. I know based on our conversations that everyone can handle it. It's Holons. It's spelled Holons. And when we think about priorities and strategies, especially here at such a global forum, sometimes we even use the right hand gestures. We're sitting here at the global level, then there's municipal levels, then there's businesses. There's a hierarchy to that that can oversimplify the complexity at each level among our systems. Holons refers to the act of organizing information in concentric circles instead of in layers, because our destinations are within our countries, they're within our communities, and they're within our worlds, and our businesses are within those. And it's really only by zooming in and zooming out can we align all of these appropriate mechanisms to transform systems in ways that can secure them for nature and also for all of our communities that we serve and live in.
Thank you, Sam. And actually, by addressing food waste, the tourism sector has the possibility to actually contribute to a more sustainable global food system. It is through better consumption of food by the sector and the individuals that we can trigger changes on the production side. So we really need to do this. It's cost effective, it's good for the environment. And on top of that, unfortunately, still 1 out of 9 people still go to bed hungry at night. So it's also a humanitarian act.
I'll also just say there's so much more to be said. And if your destination is thinking about a holistic food sustainability plan, we'd love to keep having the conversation.
Absolutely. I think it's a perfect area of work for pre-competitive cooperation, as many others. All right, we are almost finalizing, but before we do, I'd like to still see from Wassim, maybe the approach for destinations from PONANT. Are you also thinking differently, how to engage with destinations differently, or how to transport, benefits differently to destination?
Yes. As I mentioned, our third pillar of our CSR roadmap is to involve the stakeholders for a better sustainability, and we decided to work on all the value chain, including, of course, the local communities and the destination. We have a big work to involve local communities in our development. We are working on education, on environment protection, on promotion of cultural heritage. And what we do, we send some of our employees to the destination. They stay a period to discuss with local population, to know their expectations, their needs, and also we host some of people in our headquarters on board our ships to know better our activity, and it allows us to improve the communication and relationship. And it's a new type of collaboration. It's not very easy because there are different cultures, different needs, different requests, but we think that we cannot do sustainability without considering human aspect, without considering their expectation. And now the second project we are working on is called Green Corridor. Green Corridor is a work with the stakeholders from transport, from hotels, food providers, to have a sustainable journey door to door. Means we have to offer an experience to our guests with the maximum of environmental respect, and also including the cultural aspects and promotion of the local biodiversity, the local culture. So
Thank you.
We have a lot of challenges.
I think this value chain approach that you are just mentioning in the Green Corridor project actually connects very well with the systemic thinking we have been trying to portray throughout the panel. I'm going back to Tono to have one last reflection on policies and how that systemic vision can be transported into the policies to create more enabling environments. Tono, having heard all panelists, what would be your recommendations for destination managers when they are thinking about their next move?
Gracias por la pregunta todavía más difícil que la anterior. Bueno, es que cada colectivo responde a unos estímulos, ¿no? Que pueden ser económicos, pueden ser políticos, pueden ser sociales. O sea, yo no tengo respuesta para esa pregunta, pero lo que sí que entiendo es que el paso ya está dado. O sea, tenemos grandes compañías que actúan en materia de sostenibilidad y además lo hacen a pulmón, digamos, lo hacen solas. Luego tenemos iniciativas políticas de destino que actúan y actúan en favor de esta sostenibilidad, etcétera. Yo me quedo con que a cada uno hay que darle el estímulo que corresponde, ¿no? En este marco de referencia del que estamos hablando permanentemente, de gobernanza participativa, donde contemos con todos, con la ciudadanía, con las empresas, con los trabajadores, etcétera, esto tiene que ser un win-win. Es decir, todo el mundo tiene que ganar. Y entonces yo estoy más no sé cómo hacerlo. Bueno, se me ocurren algunas cosas que prefiero no contar, porque a cada estímulo hay que darle una respuesta. Entonces, evidentemente, yo antes hacía mención de que, aunque la apuesta por la sostenibilidad es una acción a largo plazo, en materia de los gestores de destino, es una política pública lo que se están desarrollando en los destinos. Hay que retornar algo para los políticos que la lanzan. Entonces hay que obtener algunos resultados a corto plazo. Si todo lo ciframos a una política que tiene un horizonte temporal que supera el ciclo político, pues estaríamos complicados. Pero me inclino más a que tenemos un montón de herramientas encima de la mesa. Que los destinos que se están lanzando a esto, y ya decía antes que, claro, estamos en un destino fantástico, consolidadísimo, con un tejido empresarial responsable, que sabe también dónde tiene que tocar las teclas para responder a un mercado que está cambiando, pero hay muchos destinos que no están en este nivel de desarrollo y de compromiso, y esos destinos también hay que lanzarles un mensaje positivo, porque hay programas y políticas, digamos, de soft power que consiguen resultados sin la necesidad de que haya dinero. Si hay dinero también, pero tenemos acciones que hoy deberían de lanzarse ya. Los destinos tienen que tener un relato de sostenibilidad, de tal manera que aquel que se salga del relato pues está fuera de juego. No juega, no gana, se acabó, pues entonces la empresa no funciona. Entonces, primero un relato. Bueno, primero una hoja de ruta para saber lo que tienes que hacer, pero un relato. Pero luego hay que sensibilizar a la propia población, al turista. Estábamos aquí hablando de educar al turista, que siempre dicen que eso de educar al mercado está muy complicado, pero educarle en valores que ya son propios, y si son del destino, resulta más fácil. Regular, sancionar e incentivar. Luego, sensibilizar y capacitar a la gente, pero capacitar en los dos sentidos. Yo hoy he aprendido, ya la última de los solones, pues es que soy un neófito en esto. Tengo que aprender un argot, un discurso, tengo que entenderlo, pero también tendrán que entenderlo las gentes. Ayer, el otro día hablaban de que el diseñador del hotel tenía que hablar con el destino para entender cuál era su lógica y responder a eso, ¿no? Entonces, yo creo que hay acciones de gran contundencia. Este país ha puesto en funcionamiento con fondos Next Generation un programa de sostenibilidad que integra cambio climático, por ejemplo, descarbonización, que integra acciones que están en línea de una transformación sostenible basada en los Next Generation. Y afortunadamente hay dinero, pero para aquellos que no tienen ese dinero también hay soluciones y hay iniciativas que afortunadamente incluso suceden al margen de que las políticas públicas las acompañen. Entonces, el mensaje es que todo el mundo se lleve la parte que le corresponde y lo que decíamos, yo creo que hay que entender que hemos pasado o estamos pasando y las previsiones hacia ahí nos están llevando. Hay que entender que hemos pasado de la promoción para que vengan a la gestión para que sea sostenible. Y eso es algo que afortunadamente muchos destinos están tirando adelante esa iniciativa y muchas empresas magníficas con una potencia brutal lo están haciendo. Y esos programas transnacionales que se lanzan, esta casa, la OMT o la Naciones Unidas, lanzan programas a los cuales los destinos también se pueden sumar. La verdad es que es un lujo y gracias por enseñarme, la verdad.
Thank you, Tono. It's clearly complex, but we can advance together. We need to continue simplifying complexity, accelerating action, and of course, constantly improving. Jorge, would you like to say a few final remarks?
I'll just say 3 words. The first one, it is rethink. The recovery from the COVID crisis gives all of you an opportunity to rethink your own business models. Destinations, local authorities have the keys to bring on new policies, new frameworks. Once you have rethought, act, be consistent with what you have understood. Act on it. It may give you an advantage. It may help you do better. It may help you make more sustainable business. Once you have act, inspire. You cannot inspire if you have not asked. You cannot act if you have not rethought your business models. This has been a wonderful opportunity. I have enjoyed very much meeting and celebrating these extremely inspiring cases, and I encourage you to keep on working in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. You've been fantastic. Thank you all very much for your support, and thank you, everyone. We look forward to discussing with you about One Planet and more in the networking sessions. Thank you.